Hi guys, welcome and welcome back to my channel. It's Agnes at momcandoit.com. Today we're talking about how to reduce an ACCA exam day stress. The reason I wanted to cover this today is because the day of the ACCA exam is probably one of the most stressful days that the ACCA student go through. Well, come to think of it, probably second most stressful day, because I found that actually receiving the results is probably even more stressful than actually sitting the exam. But today we're going to talk about the actual exam day and how to reduce the stress. How can you make this day a little bit more easy for yourself, how to prepare better for it, how to make sure that you make the most out of this day and that you're fully prepared and you're basically going to smash it. So you have been preparing for weeks and weeks, going through the lessons, revising, practicing past papers, making sure that you've nailed your knowledge, or at least most of us do, right? And then you set the exam day and you try to give it your best. And all you need is 50 marks, right, to pass the ACCA exam. Just 50 marks. But only if you have sat those exams before, you know that to get 50 marks is pretty much near enough impossible, right? 50 points is nearly as hard to get as climbing Kilimanjaro. But as many have proven already, it is doable. Around 35,000 people try to reach this 5,895 meters high giant every single year, yet only 40% actually gets to the summit. Now, very strange how this aligns with ACCA exam pass rates, doesn't it? Especially the professional papers. Anyway, let's get to the point and discuss the very important matter here, which is how to reduce the ACCA exam stress day. So there are certain things that you can do to actually make sure that this day goes a little bit smoother and less stressful. I remember the feeling that I've had when I was going to ACCA exams. I always used to drive to the exam, and it took me about nearly an hour to drive because the exams used to be at 10 o'clock and I had to get there for about 9 o'clock or 9:15 just to make sure I've got enough time and not to miss the exam as well. So I always used to leave the house about 8:20, and this is a rush hour as well, so I knew I'm going to get stuck in a little bit of traffic. But driving to the exam, oh, I remember my stomach was just always in knots, and also the night before I couldn't fall asleep. And you know, the whole night was a nightmare, knowing that I need to get up early, that I don't want to, oversleep, that I want to make sure that I have enough rest. Having that pressure on my head just made me not sleep well at all. But over the time that I was sitting the exams, and I don't know whether you've seen my journey, the story of my journey on ACCA, I have failed 6 exams. I have sat, or I have driven to the exam center 11 times just to do my professional papers. So 11 times back and forth to the Chessington Examination Centre. This is where I was passing my exams in. So over the years I have learned to kind of, come up with some coping mechanism, if you like, to manage my stress level and make sure that I'm a little bit more prepared and a little bit less stressed and more relaxed going to those exams. So I've got a few tips that I've put together for you, and I want to go through it, to discuss it, and hopefully you can use them in preparations for the next exam that you're going to sit. And if they help you, I would love you to comment below which one do you resonate with the most and which one do you think was the most helpful one. So I'm going to kick it off with a good night's sleep. Everyone knows how important is a good night's sleep, and as I have already mentioned to you, I did never manage to get a very good night's sleep. But there are a few things that you can do to make sure that you will get a better sleep. And remember, just the night before the exam, if you're going to study till 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock at night, it does not ensure that you're going to pass. Whatever you already got in your head will be probably sufficient enough, or it just won't be enough to pass the exam. So give up on studying till late night that night, because it really won't help. What you want to make sure is that you go sleep fairly early, that you get 8 hours rest, because I guarantee you probably won't be able to sleep throughout the whole 8 hours and you will be waking up at night, most likely. At least I think that's how most people cope with the stress. But you want to make sure that you really do get good night's sleep. It will be much easier for you to wake up fresh, with your brain being well focused, and make sure that you nail those exams. The next tip I have for you is to eat good breakfast. Now, I don't know which country you're going to be sitting your ACCA exams. The ones that were in the UK always starts at 10 o'clock in the morning, and the exams that I used to sit, well, I'm talking about professional exams here because I'm not too sure how much is the computer-based ones, but usually the exams take 3 hours. So it's 3 hours plus 15 minutes reading time, plus you have to give yourself probably 15-20 minutes beforehand because you're not going to eat anything. So that's good 4-5 hours straight of not eating anything. So you want to make sure you have very good breakfast. Have healthy breakfast. Don't get a fry up because you're probably going to feel heavy and bloated. Obviously, you know what keeps you fed the most and what gives you the most energy, but I really would recommend having a healthy snack. And perhaps just before going to the exam center, maybe have a banana or, you know, some very high protein superfood. And remember that during the examination, you're not going to be allowed to have any snacks or any food with you. The only thing you are allowed to have is to have a water. So make sure you do eat plenty so that the energy lasts you throughout the whole exam. This brings me to another point, which is keep hydrated. Water is the most recommended drinks by the health professionals to make sure that you stay hydrated. But if you fancy having a cup of coffee, which I normally have in the morning, I cannot leave the house without having a good cup of coffee, then this is what you want to have. Have a cup of coffee, followed by breakfast, and have water. Drink plenty of water. Yet not too much, because remember that during the examination time, the time is really crucial. So you don't want to be going back and forth to the toilet, and you are allowed with invigilator to go to the toilet and have a little toilet break, which, as I mentioned, invigilator will assist you to go to the toilet because they want to make sure you're not taking any unfair advantage. So they will follow you to the toilet, and that will cost you 5 minutes of your time, or even longer if you need to have a longer break. If you perhaps had a fry up, maybe you will need a longer break than 5 minutes, but you want to make sure that you cut down on breaks, because every minute that you come out the exam, first of all, it takes your important time away from your exams, and second thing, it will probably throw you out of the mode of writing, so you will have to kind of refocus again, and that may take you 5-10 minutes to get in a mode of writing. So you really want to make sure that you drink water, but you don't drink too much, and you use the toilet before you actually go to the exam hall. Tip is regarding planning your trip to the actual exam center. So the day before my first exam, before I've driven to Chessington Center for the first time, I made sure that I planned my journey. So I knew which route I'm going to take, I know which roads I'm going to take, I knew whether there is any possible traffic disruption, so there could have been accidents, and lucky for me, I've never had a case where I got late because of the traffic or because of the accidents on the road. But these things happen, you know, and you got to be careful, and you got to make sure that you are prepared. So sometimes you just can't predict certain things, but the more you're prepared, the more or the less stressed you're going to be going to the exam, because the last thing you want to do is rushing and getting there last minute, or even worse, getting late for exams, right? Because this is eating up into your crucial time. You will be allowed to the exam center if you're late. I believe they will give you about half an hour lateness the most before they will tell you that you can no longer sit exam. So if you're going to drive, make sure you have enough petrol in your car or diesel. If you're going to take a train, make sure that you have money or you have your travel card. If you're going to take a bus, make sure that you have the money or travel card on you. So, or if you wanted to get a taxi, make sure you book it in advance to make sure that you get there on time. It is really, really crucial that you have this well planned, because this will be one stress less on already a very stressful day, right? Ensure that you have everything you need before you leave the house to the exam hall. So there are a few things that you need to have with you in order to be able to sit those exams. So the first and foremost is the examination docket. The examination docket will be sent to you probably about 2 weeks before the actual exam. You have to make sure you print it, you sign it, and you read the terms and conditions on the back of it, because terms and conditions set out what you can, what you cannot do on the exam day. You need to have an ID as well, so whether that's your passport or whether your driving license, you need to make sure that you do have it with you, because they will be checking that with your examination docket. You're going to need a couple of black pens, so make sure they cannot be blue, they have to be black ballpoint pens. So make sure you don't have a gel pen, marker pen, or any other pens or pencil. You can't write with anything like that, because those papers will be scanned over to the examiners. They will not be just sent copies, as far as I'm aware at least. You want to make sure you write the best you can. However, you know, not everyone's got neat handwriting, and my handwriting isn't the neatest either, and obviously when you're rushing, your writing gets even worse, but they are prepared for it, and you know, people can make out what what you're trying to say, and if it makes sense. Don't worry about the grammar, don't worry about the spelling or punctuations, nothing like that matters. What matters is whether you actually grasping the concept of the knowledge and whether you can demonstrate that you have that knowledge, and then you can analyze and evaluate the questions and answer them appropriately. Also, what you need to have is probably a bottle of water, and make sure you take the writing, so any labels that you have on it, because you're not allowed to have any labeling on it. The next point is to arrive to the exam hall at least half an hour before the exam time. So I was always aiming to arrive at least 45 minutes before the exam. This was just in case there were any delays on the way that would cause me being delayed to the exam. So as I did mention before, you can be late to the exam and they will still allow you to sit the exam, I think, for about half an hour. However, it is important that you don't, because despite they letting you in, you will be losing your valuable time, which will be eating into your exam time, which is already so short. The next point I want to mention is to find a friendly face. Now, I always tried looking for someone that would be happy to talk to me. And I know you arriving at the hall, what happens, you usually see 20, 30 people sitting somewhere cramming the last minute's knowledge. And I did have my notes on me. I'm not saying that I've never done this before, but since I started to kind of looking for friendly face, and if you have seen somebody that you know already, it would be even better. But maybe try to just find a friendly face and just sit down next to somebody and just chat to them, because it's nice to have a little bit of relaxing talk before the actual exam. And I have made a few friends actually on the exam day, which I'm keeping in touch with. Yes, it is really nice to find a friendly face and just talk to them, just to feel a little bit more relaxed before the actual exam. The next tip I have for you is to leave all your notes behind in the bag that you left with your jacket or with your belongings. So once the invigilators open the door of the hall, of the exam hall, make sure you find your sitting space, leave your water, your calculator and your exam notes, only if you're allowed those, because I know some of the exams are open book exams, but most of them aren't. So make sure you don't have any notes on you, you don't hold any in your pockets, you don't hold any behind you or in your trousers, or the thing is, if you're trying to take unfair advantage and invigilator finds you cheating, you don't want to take that risk, because they can actually completely sign you off the register and you will no longer be able to apply for membership in ACCA. I have actually seen somebody trying to take unfair advantage at the exam, and what happened is that invigilator had asked them to empty their pockets and they have had notes in there. Now, I'm not too sure whether they forgot to remove it or whether they had been silly enough to think that they can cheat on the exam, but they have been asked to leave the room. And I'm not too sure exactly what's happened afterwards, but for what I've read and what I've heard from people is that if you cheat and if they find you cheating, they can completely disqualify you and strip you of your rights as a student. All the money, all the time that you've invested in it, it's gonna be scrapped. You basically lost the chance to become qualified accountant. So make sure you leave those notes behind. And remember that invigilators walk around the exam hall all the time, so they will make sure that nobody takes unfair advantage. So you really want to make sure that you don't make such mistake of having those notes with you. One before last tip that I have for you is to have a watch or clock on you. So you're allowed to have a wristwatch as long as it's not smartwatch, or you're allowed to have a little clock with a timer on it, because obviously you want to make sure that you watch your time. It is crucial that you stay on time and you don't exceed the time that you allow yourself to write single question. So there are also 2 or 3 clocks around the room, and it depends obviously on the hall that you're writing in. The one that I was writing in, there was one in front of us and there was one on the side of us, so you could look at those clocks. And also invigilators do kind of make you aware of the timing, so they will say we are halfway through the exam, or they will tell you you got 15 minutes, and then eventually they will tell you the exam has finished, please put your pen down. Just a side tip that always, whenever I was writing my exam, I always annotated at the exam booklet what time I wanted to finish each question, and I always made sure that I never went over that time, because the minute I eat into another question's time, that would kind of delay me. So the minute I finished first question, the timing finished for the first question, I just stopped and moved on. Obviously, if you have one more sentence to say just to kind of finish your point, it's okay, but try not to exceed that time, because it really does eat into another question, and then that question delays you and have a knock-on effect on the other question. And the last tip that I have for you is to believe in yourself and stay positive. It is going to be alright. Look, you have spent hours preparing for this day, right? You have revised, you have gone through past papers, you've done endless amount of hours studying. I'm pretty sure the knowledge is there. Sometimes there is a problem with the technique, or maybe you haven't prepared enough. Whatever is the case, on the exam day, you can't change how much you know. All you can do is kind of refocus, change your mindset, believe in yourself and stay positive. All you can do is do your best. And even if this is a resit, so it's a second or third attempt or fourth attempt that you're writing the exam, I know it is a little bit more difficult to do a resit than to do your first time exam. Just stay focused. You know, you've done it once before, so you've had kind of a mock test already. So this is where the real deal happens. You need to really focus and make sure that you stay positive, you write as much as you can, you find the easy marks as well, and you make sure you cover them first before you move on to the more difficult items. Sometimes the way the examination is laid down, they want you to find those easy marks, and if you don't manage to find those easy marks, you will struggle and spend more time answering those more difficult things. So focus on those easy marks first, and then look for those that are more harder to get. Also, never assume the examiner will know what you're talking about. When you're writing your answer, make sure that you're talking to the examiner as if he wasn't an account professional. That's how they can make sure that you actually understand. You need to convince the examiner that you know what you're talking about, not that he knows what you're talking about. And remember, if English isn't your first language, which isn't for me, it's still okay. As I mentioned before, the examiner is not looking for your grammar, is not looking for your punctuation, and is not looking for your spelling mistakes either. They will ignore that. All they want to make sure is that you understand and that they know that you know what you're talking about. So as I said, all you need is 50 points. Tackle the easy marks first and then move on to the harder ones. So that's it. That was my 10 tips for you that I've covered. Hopefully it was informative for you. I know it was a rather long one, but I wanted to cover everything. And once you finish writing the exam and you leave the exam hall, if you still have that friendly face there, discuss the answers that you both had. But don't go into too much details, because sometimes what can happen, you can then think, oh, they had answered it right, I've answered it wrong, I probably failed, and this will just keep you kind of worried, and you know, it's just no point doing that. Just move on from it for 2 weeks, maybe a week, take a time off, you know, don't study, relax, take that time to rebuild the relationships that you had sacrificed for some time when you were studying. It's time for you to now take time off and then start again. If this is your last exam, hope for the best, fingers crossed you've done it, and next month you find out that you're now a member of ACCA. Whatever the case, I wish you the very best of luck. Remember, stay positive, focused, follow some of the tips that I gave you, and you should be fine. I hope you guys find this informative. If you liked this video, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up, comment below if you had any questions, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.